As you can see, I'm talking about transforming our tomorrows by understanding our yesterdays. What we're going to do here, we can get the thing work, is first of all track some astro-cycles that can explain and provide information to advise on world events. So you can see things that have happened in the past, maybe slightly differently now, that they're coming back in a way that we can learn from the past in order to understand the present and the future. And so we'll be looking back on key transits against crucial world reactions to them at the time, and then try and learn from the errors we made then, or maybe the things we did right then, to ensure that the Jupiter-Saturn in Aquarius conjunction at the 2020 world winter solstice will mark the birth of kind cooperation, and so the shared joy of sustainable years ahead for ourselves and the planet. And I'm just reading that, but I really feel it, and I hope that you'll find this a useful way of understanding and mastering, because this is what we do astrology to master the present, by understanding how cycles work, and we can learn a lot of that by looking at the past. So I'm going to go back quite a long way to start with, and those of you who heard me talk before may have seen a couple of the slides I'm going to show you. Not too many, there's a lot of new stuff here, but it's just a good idea to put our time in a very long-term perspective. So the question we asked Solar Fire was, when previously was Jupiter, Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn, when all of these three planets together, between the whole long period of the Solar Fire will calculate, in fact it's not 5000 BCE but 4999 BCE and 499 CE, but in that 10,000 year period, how often have we had these three planets in Capricorn together? Well, first of all, I'm looking at it from a tropical point of view, and you can see that where there was occasion 2867 BCE, that's a long time ago, and then 1894 BCE, that's 2000 years before Christ was born, and just under, and then there's a 2443 year gap until 549, and then 1284, which is a very interesting year because that was the year that the ducat was devised as a system of currency that lasted right until I think the 19th century, maybe even the early 20th. And then we get this period that's just coming up now from December 2019, just gone right the way up to December this year, 19th of December this year. So, you know, it's a very rare time that these three planets are together. And if you look at it from a sidereal point of view, just look at the sidereal zodiac, the gap is even bigger, from 3165 BCE to the same date in 549. And then again, another little date there in 1285. But there's this enormous gap between the pre-Christian era and the post-Christian era. And again, it fits quite into 2021 from a sidereal point of view. But supposing we include Saturn in tropical Taurus, sorry, start again. Supposing we include tropical Uranus in Taurus, we add that to the search. And this is a criteria search here. And then we find the last time these four planets were in these signs at the same time was 3838 BCE. And the only time since then it's going to happen is it came up last December and carries on, as we saw just now, to December this year. And of course, this is the time that we go back to see the first writing. I mean, it's a bit after that, but it's at that sort of time. And also the beginning of the Bronze Age, the end of the late Neolithic ages. It was a time of incredible transformation. Now, suddenly project your mind forward 5,000 years, 6,000 years maybe. How will people that far ahead look on the progress or the change of the world in that period of time? Now look back those 5,000 to 6,000 years, and how has the development of metal, of writing, of the wheel, of these kinds of basic core things that make our society what it is, how has that grown and developed through that 5,000 year period? We're at such a stage of change, such a focal stage of change at this time. So now let's come in a little bit closer. I'm not going to go too far back, but you know, I just want to come in a bit closer. And here you've got the Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune and Pluto a graphic ephemeris of their progress through the 15th century. Those of you who hadn't seen a diagram, like I think most of you will have done, but if you haven't, if you just take the vertical axis, so you can see it's 0, 30 right the way down to 360. Obviously, the first 30 degrees is Aries, then Taurus, then Gemini, Cancer, right the way down to Pisces. So I've actually put a rectangle in two areas. We could speak all day and all night about this diagram and what it means, but for the moment, I've just put this around there. And I just want to pick out one particular point, is this period in the 1440s when Uranus was crossing Jupiter and Saturn. And at the same time, actually, Pluto was about to move into Cancer, but it's the Jupiter-Saturn Uranus conjunction in Gemini, which is the time when printed writing was discovered. The number of books in Cambridge University before this time was about 300. They're all written in beautiful script. By the end of the century, there were thousands of books in print, and this led to an incredible upheaval at the end of the decade with the build-up of the Renaissance and the movement towards the Reformation. It was stirring in the undergrowth of the late 15th century. Now, if we superimpose the 20th century on top of this, that's what I've just done. See, it's now the 20th century. And you look here again in the similar sort of position. And here we have the conjunction again in late Taurus into early Gemini. I mean, the real conjunction was the beginning of the war in 1940, which just led to the breakout of World War II. But you still got this movement of Saturn and Jupiter and Uranus through Gemini. And this, of course, when computer technology as we know it today was developed. I mean, they had computers before then, but the kind of electronic system that we have now as we move to the 1980s and the 1990s and see the same concentration of planets again in the late 80s and into the 90s. Again, that concentration there. We get the incredible expansion in computer technology and the internet and so on and so forth. So now I'm jumping ahead too fast. If we look at the 16th century, the century afterwards, of course, the consequence of all that development of understanding was the breakdown of the religious infrastructure in Europe, and particularly the Reformation. You can see that quite clearly with the conjunctions happening there between Saturn, Jupiter, and this time Neptune. It was a transformation of religious belief that was going to lead to conflict for hundreds of years. Now, if we then superimpose our present time upon it, you see the conjunction is now coming up into Taurus, into Capricorn, and then the planets are moving out into Aquarius. And here it's connected with the Saturn, it's connected with Pluto, not Neptune, and it's connected with Jupiter as well. So it's this Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto conjunction that we've all been talking about that is going to lead to a traumatic, explosive transformation. This is not just about religious conflict, which the 16th century was, but it's very much about a fundamental conflict of the actual structure and the way we organize things. So that is the context that we're working in. So now if we move a bit closer on, just to quickly remind ourselves, I've shown this before several times in previous talks, and I think you're all familiar with this, that the Reformation led to the dissolution of the monasteries, the development of trade to the Far East, the expansion of Islam into Europe. And then the next period of Pluto in Capricorn was the rapid expansion of colonialism and industrialization, enclosure of the fields in Britain, a complete change of developments of capitalism and the way we do business with each other, the taking over the world of Europe and the consequences of that. And so these are the stages, and this is the third one we're in now, of course, we just come to the end of the next Pluto period, the current Pluto period. So that's the macro context of what I'm talking about today.